Hi, welcome back to Talking Europe on France 24. Now, I'd like to start this part of the programme with a quote. I am a citizen of the world, known to all, and to all a stranger. You might recognise those words as those of Dutch Renaissance philosopher Erasmus, the man whose name was given over to the European Student Exchange Programme that has funded millions of students to spend a year or several months in a foreign country. Now, the Erasmus programme was founded in 1987 for university students in the EU. 5 years ago, it was fully expanded to include all sorts of different programmes, including vocational students, teachers, youth workers, under the final banner of Erasmus Plus. Now, the new funding for Erasmus Plus has just been announced, with double the budget, 30 billion euros for the period from 2021 to 27, and an aim of bringing the total number of people who've benefited from Erasmus Plus to 12 million. Now, today we'll be finding out more about the latest upgrades to the programmes, what they've brought to students around the EU and beyond, and whether this isn't just a glorified jolly for a privileged few. Now, before I introduce our studio guests, here's Ellen Gainsford with some of the key facts in a handy cartoon form.
33 countries participate in the Erasmus programme. The 28 members of the European Union, as well as Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein, Macedonia and Turkey. When Erasmus was first created in 1987, there were only 11 participants. Today, 5 million people have completed an overseas stay thanks to the programme. More than 3 million university students, but also high school students, apprentices, teachers and job searchers. Just in France, more than 600,000 students and 120,000 teachers have benefited. The country comes second after Spain in the number of candidates it sends. As a host country, it comes third, after Spain and Germany. The European budget has allocated 16,400 million euros to the Erasmus programme for 2014 until 2020. A fruitful investment responsible for more than 1 million babies. Around one Erasmus student out of 4 finds a partner during their stay. There we go, a whistle-stop tour around Erasmus and Erasmus Plus. I ought to add that as of February this year, there is another member country, Serbia. Now, watching that with me were 3 people with particular perspectives on Erasmus Plus. First, a student who's taken part in the programme and can tell us what differentiates this experience from a regular year abroad. Patrick Kreis, thanks for being with us. Hello there.
Thank you, hello.
And next to you, the head of the Erasmus Plus agency in France, Laure Coutreau. Thank you for coming along. Thank you. And we've also got with us Irish MEP Leonie Reardon from the Sinn Féin Party and the European United Left group. Hi there.
Hi.
Now, I think it'd be best if we start off with you, Patrick, as you're the one person with the most experience of the Erasmus Plus programme as a participant. Now, you're studying hospitality.
Yes.
You went to Dublin in Ireland for a 5-month stay that finished in January. It's a very hospitable country, so very apt to do hospitality studies there. But for our viewers, what did you actually do in this Erasmus experience?
So I had catering, cuisine, lessons, lectures. I had wine and beverage studies too, and gastronomy studies.
Did you have Guinness studies as well with it?
No, but I drank a lot of Guinness tea.
That's what we want to hear. In terms of actually doing these studies, of course, Erasmus, you know, it's very much about funding and placing students in the right place. Dublin, I'm sure Leonie Reardon can attest to this, Dublin's a very expensive city to live in. Did your Erasmus funding cover you?
Not at all.
No?
It only covered a month and a half accommodation bill.
So overall, do you think it was worth it?
It was, even though it was quite expensive, but luckily I have parents that gave me money to go all through the Erasmus mobility. So
just overall, what you got out of the experience then?
So first, Irish people are fantastic, that's for sure. I met wonderful students, not only Irish students, also French students, and Dutch students too. And also, it gives us, we want to also go away after Erasmus because we want to know everything about the world, not only Europe, but everything. Just
so really opening perspectives and hopefully job prospects once you finish your studies next year?
Hopefully. I'd like to go in another English-speaking country, maybe Canada or Australia, to work.
Okay, well, sounds like you got a lot out of Erasmus Plus. I'll come to our other guests. Erasmus Plus, local trio, covers a lot of areas now. University study, vocational courses like Patrick's, even sports projects. What for you are the main aims of this project?
I think the most important thing is that the public now are very open, and that we introduce this vet mobility, which is addressing a new kind of public. Mm-hmm. It's not students, it's people who get fewer chance to go abroad before, and with this Erasmus Plus, they can go abroad, and they can go abroad for a longer period. And when you go outside of your country, when you return back to your country, you are different. You are different because you got more autonomy. You've been experiencing different fields and in a way that people look at them differently. And that kind of, you are enriched in a way. Mm. And I think if you want to go on the market to find a job, it's an easy way to get to jobs. And in the inquiry we do at the agency in France, we show that people who've got this experience, when they go to the job market, mm-hmm. They are in better situation to get a job.
Okay, Patrick's been nodding through some of what you've been saying there.
Yeah.
Seems that you agree. Just on that participation and this enlargement of Erasmus over the years to include all sorts of people from different parts of society, not just university students. Leonie Rieder, there is often this accusation about Erasmus that it's, it's for students who are from backgrounds that are already privileged. Their parents can afford to help them out with their studies, for example. Is it true, do you think, that Erasmus is the domain of the better off in our society?
I don't think there's any question about it. Now, I'd be very clear, Erasmus in itself is a wonderful concept and it's a great idea. It's one that we support, and indeed I work on the Committee on Culture and Education and was shadowing that particular file. And we talked all the time about accessibility, because it's not just about the economic factor, but it's mobility for those who have disabilities, for instance. Mm-hmm. Or I'm glad you mentioned sport. We want to broaden the scope of it out. But fundamentally, it is becoming a very elitist opportunity, because I can't imagine somebody, and I've often come across apprenticeships, for instance, in Ireland, and it's great that Erasmus covers apprenticeships. However, people who are doing apprenticeships, or indeed who are in third level education, are already struggling to put food on the table. Particularly, Patrick, you alluded to the fact that Dublin is incredibly expensive accommodation and the rise of rents. We have a huge housing and homeless crisis. And so somebody who doesn't have the money, or who doesn't have parents that are well off that can guarantee them a loan from the bank, for instance, they have to front load this themselves. So although the idea in itself and the concept is great, finding the money to facilitate.
Some funding is better than no funding, for sure.
It is, but at the same time, some of those students, they will never be able to get onto Erasmus, because they will never be able to get somebody to guarantee a loan from them from the bank, for instance, if their parents are in a position to do that.
Well, let's bring this back to Laure Coutreau as the director of the agency in France. Is that a situation you agree with?
No, I don't agree with that, because in France we can see easily that the people who are going on Erasmus are people from a very popular origin for the vet side. Mm-hmm. And for example, for the higher education, 40% of the people are people who are nationally granted because their social level is not enough. Mm-hmm. So in our country, I can say it's different. Mm-hmm. And I have another experience. We work a lot with the Minister of Agriculture, and we develop a specific strategy for a rural area where people have very few opportunity to go out of their area. And for example, one destination is Ireland, and the different college and lycée work together on exchanges on that. So for this kind also of people in rural area, it's a great opportunity to get this Erasmus Plus program.
Well, should there perhaps be a bit more structure and perhaps some sort of quotas almost of people from different kind of income backgrounds who access what kinds of funding?
I think there should be a level playing pitch there for sure, and that it's more accessible to those who can't afford it, because although again I welcome that you're targeting those who are geographically disadvantaged in rural areas and all that, it's certainly a step in the right direction, and certainly apprenticeships has been a huge step in the right direction. But the bottom line still is it's out of reach of the ordinary person or student who comes from a deprived poverty background. They will never be able to get on that ladder because they don't come from a family that can support them in that. I mean, we heard a month or 6 weeks into the Erasmus programme, the funds ran out for you, Patrick, and you were lucky to achieve the full programme because it is worthwhile doing it. But again, there has to be some level playing pitch. We should maybe be looking at, low level interest loans or taxation incentives in some way to allow these students to get their foot on the ladder to make use of Erasmus Plus. But then again, it's up to the member state to do that, and I fully say that Ireland should pull in as much as possible in terms of taking responsibility for allowing it to be accessible.
All right, so perhaps some ideas for changes to the structure of how Erasmus actually works. I'd like to bring in another massive European news subject that, of course, we can't really escape from, Brexit. As things stand, a very chaotic situation with Brexit. But one thing is sure, that Brexit will not impact students who are planning to go on Erasmus imminently in the next few months. However, perhaps, do we think Brexit might have an impact on students wanting to move around Europe, study? For example, Leonie Reardon, with the UK leaving the EU, do you anticipate a wave of English speakers like Patrick wanting to come to Ireland instead of the UK? Do you think the UK is going to sort of lose out, so to speak?
Undoubtedly the UK will, but we will also in Ireland lose out, I think, because we have so many in the whole education system. We have north-south collaboration and so many thousands of people cross the border every day, so it's going to have a knock-on impact on education. But specifically on Erasmus, yes, we might see a further influx in, but I was glad that we had today that we voted to ensure that those who are already started on the Erasmus programme will continue to avail of it until the end of their programme is complete. So at least that assurance is there, and we should be very clear to those students who are perhaps nervous about the outcome of Brexit, which of course nobody knows. They are guaranteed to the end of that, but after that there's no clarity on that. But certainly we might see an influx in Ireland, but unless you have very, very deep pockets, and unless you are very well positioned to afford the huge cost of accommodation and the huge cost of living in Ireland, it's going to be difficult for students in particular to avail of that.
I'm interested in your experience, Patrick. Of course, English speaking, wanting to improve your English through this experience. You chose the Republic of Ireland rather than the UK. Was Brexit a factor in your decision making there?
Not really. I just wanted to discover Ireland and Dublin.
Now, and you said that looking to the future for jobs, you were thinking of perhaps Canada or actually places outside of Europe.
Yes.
Why would that be, rather than wanting to stay within the EU?
Just to see how they live, how discover the country, not only work there, but also go all around the country and see wonderful things.
So you've had your horizons broadened and you want to keep going with that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's interesting looking at the partner countries that are involved in Erasmus, because of course there are the 34 sort of core countries, but actually there's around 200 countries around the world that participate in Erasmus in some ways. Going back to you, Laure, does this make a whole world of opportunities, or is it sort of something that's no longer a European project? Is Erasmus going to lose its focus through this?
The majority of the money is going to the inter-European exchanges, and it's at the moment a very small part of the budget which is outside of Europe. So it's a start on this issue. And what we can see is that the strategy of the university, they are going to include this dimension in their strategy, but it's a thing which is new. It's only started in 2015, so it's under process. So it's not a
complete refocusing of Erasmus. No. Leonie Reardon, because you brought up this aspect about the funding not necessarily covering all the costs for students, do you see this expansion towards other partner countries outside of the core list? Is that a dilution of Erasmus? Should there perhaps be more of a refocusing?
No, I think it's great because, look, I think any travelling you do, particularly when you're young and free and able to do that, you should avail of it, of course, and whether it's coming to Ireland and to experience the great hospitality that we have there and learn something, or go to Canada or Australia. I don't think it should just be, we are still in Europe, so you're still very much, I suppose, European in that regard, but I think expanding it out to other countries has to be a good thing, but again, it comes down to ensuring that those students can afford those opportunities, because like I keep saying, it's really out of the reach of those who are in the poverty trap, or not even in the poverty trap, just above that, or maybe their parents are just a little bit over the line that they can't, you know, apply for grants because they're just over the threshold. So there has to be some way that the student themselves can afford the opportunity of Erasmus, whether it's travelling to France or travelling to Ireland or to indeed Canada. And I wish you the best of luck in your endeavours in Canada and Australia. I'm sure you'll be well got there.
Absolutely. Well, we've only got just about a minute left on the programme, so I just wanted to come to one final aspect about Erasmus. Back to you, Laure Coudreau. There's a lot of talk about east-west splits in Europe at the moment. Countries like Hungary and Poland, France, some sort of political opposition there. French students do seem to prefer Western Europe. On the top 10 destination countries, there's only Poland among the top 10 that's outside of Western Europe. Is that something that should be expanded to bring more cohesion in Europe, do you think?
I think the things are changing. Brexit is going to have an impact, and we see a lot of destinations where people were not going before, and now they'll go there. So it's something new, and I think maybe Brexit will have an impact on that too.
Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in this discussion, but thank you all very much for taking part. Patrick Reis, Laure Coudreau and Leah Nureda. Thank you all very much. Thank you as well for watching. We'll see you soon on France 24 for more European news.
For our latest Observers Direct, we've come to Bamako, the capital of Mali. Our observer Bala Mariko is an activist fighting against sexual and domestic violence. Omar Sissoko, a student who's been documenting the transport of meat in the city. And Youssouf Diakité, the founder of a school where blind kids study alongside their sighted comrades.
The Observers Direct, presented by Corentin Beignet on France 24 and France24.com.